Welcome to Illuminati Silver. We tell you the truth about silver. Today is Thursday, the 26th of December, 2019, Boxing Day. And we thought we'd spend today having a brief discussion with Controversially Greg on a non-controversial subject, which will be a change from the norm. We're going to chat to him about his past experience in buying either gold or silver. And we shall ask him, have there been occasions where he's made a considerable profit and occasions where he's made a considerable loss? So let's check that he's on the line. Greg, good morning. Can you hear me?
I can indeed. And in that it hasn't rained for a change, I suppose you could call it a good morning. I looked up the stats the other day. The last time we had a week when it didn't rain was in beginning of September. So we're justified in calling this a good morning.
Yeah, that's the privilege of living in the United Kingdom. Okay, Greg, let's talk about gold and or silver. As you've traded in the precious metals in the past, can you give us an example of where you've made a considerable amount of money on purchasing either or both of these precious metals, and an example where you've lost money in doing so?
Basically, I was running a shop, my own shop, in which we also sold coins. It was a stamp. We sold books, stamps, coins, medals, postcards, banknotes, other collectibles like antiquarian prints and maps. Coins were just one of the areas that we dealt in. This gave rise to people bringing in coins that were in silver and gold. I was also quite close to the Severn Bridge. And for some years after I opened the business at the beginning of the 80s, they were still dealing in coinage that had silver content. Now, none of the coins in circulation have silver content. And the people on the toll booths were swapping the coins around, their own nickel coins. They were swapping for the earlier dates, the pre-46, that were silver. And I used to buy silver in those days by the pound, half a kilo at a time, which was quite an entertaining pastime. We also had a business down the road that made computer circuits, and many of them are laid out in gold through a gold heat gun from a reel of 22 karat gold that is a wire in a reel, and it feeds as you click a pistol grip on the feeder so they could draw circuit boards on the mica circuit. This left with every single one just under a quarter of an inch of wire that couldn't be handled. And some of the more dodgy characters who were doing this used to collect these up and bring them into me an ounce at a time, which was quite a good source of a steady trickle of gold. It wasn't stolen per se. They were allowed to do it by their employer. It was, for them, I guess, a tax-free sideline perk. I also bought gold coins. I used to buy almost all of the gold coins I bought, sovereigns, Krugerrands, and the range of American gold coins. I used to buy them at their scrap weight, unless they were in absolutely pristine condition, because their scrap weight exceeded their collectible weight, unless it was an absolutely pristine coin. And I used to tell people this, that I bought at scrap weight only. And I used to make occasional profits by subsequently checking the mint marks and the dates, and some being rarer than others actually commanded a premium. So there was a steady flow. I wouldn't say that it was a highly profitable business because I was in a small rural town. There was no great quantity being handled. Most of the people in the area who were selling to me knew me and I knew them. And therefore, I used to try to give a very fair price to them. So I wasn't making a great deal. I also couldn't be bothered rushing off to Birmingham or London to sell it on a daily basis to maximize on fluctuations. I had a business to run. Yes, it paid. It was a supplement to the turnover of the business, but it never paid a great deal. One drawback of it, of course, that I learnt, and it happened to be on a Christmas Eve when I wasn't on the premises, we had a burglary and lost over £100,000 worth of material that was stolen. We had at the time somewhere in the region of 80 or 90 sovereigns because people had been selling them to us pre-Christmas to generate income to spend on Christmas, because quite a few people at that stage had bought sovereigns many years earlier when sovereigns were selling for £5 to £10. Now that they're selling in the £200 bracket, I was sort of halfway along that line. We were looking at buying sovereigns at 50, 60, 70 to £100 during the period we were buying, as gold steadily moved up over 20 odd years. Gold, realistically, unless you are going to trade it on a daily basis, is not a wonderful investment. However, it is a superb hedge against inflation for the ordinary individual, because as currencies devalue, gold goes up, and currencies almost inevitably devalue because it's a very good way for governments to make money, i.e. printing money, whether you call it quantitative easing or you're just clandestinely printing it. Do bear in mind, particularly in America, that the American paper dollars are really a very debatable feast as to their worth, because I can pretty accurately hazard a guess at the various countries that print American dollars because they have the ability, and the USA Fed and Treasury, interestingly, do not quote the percentage they believe to be forgeries. I also note, when you're talking of gold, that quite recently it has been found that the security on America's bullion deposits has been breached and covered up. And I understand that they are either doing or planning an audit, because nobody really knows how many of their, is it 80 tons of gold, have been clandestinely removed or substituted for lead bars with heavy gold plating. So they don't know, as far as I can work out, when the security was breached. But that should prove an interesting quantification. However, I very much doubt whether the public will ever get to know the truth behind the amount that has or hasn't gone missing.
You've covered a lot there, Greg. I mean, I just want to go back to your burglary. You said you lost about £100,000 worth of stock, and you said you had something like 80 to 100 sovereigns. Well, that's only £8,000 to £10,000. So what else did you lose?
I lost banknotes. Some of those were running to £1,000 each. Mm-hmm. I lost stamps. I had things like, not many, but I had a few Sind dorks, which are exceedingly rare and worth a lot of money. And when you think...
What are they, Greg? What are Sind dorks?
Early stamps from Sind province in India.
Right.
And they were made locally, and they were made out of wax and impressed by the postmaster in Sind. And they are very rare.
So coming back to this burglary just very quickly then, because I want to move on to your experience actually trading gold and silver. Were you not insured?
If you look at insurance, in the main, insurance is a total scam. What the large print giveth, the small print taketh away. And the premiums I'd been offered, because I had a risk, we carried high value, and basically they didn't want to insure us, so the premiums were ludicrous. Even with the 100,000 plus that we lost over the 30 years we traded, we were better off by not buying insurance. It would have cost us more than that £100,000 in premiums.
So let's take a look then. You were basically buying your gold and silver from the general public at or around sort of scrap value. You were then selling it on, obviously, with a markup, but the markup is not that considerable, whereas people I know who run pawn shops are offering half of scrap value to most people who sell them their goods. So you really have to do a reasonable trade then in order to make moderate profits. Is that true?
Well, as I said, it wasn't a major income earner. It earned us enough to make it worthwhile. It kept a flow of people coming through. It kept a flow of interest. And our profit was in a few coins that we found were scarce and in sufficient condition to be of interest in the collector market. And that was my margin on gold in the main. But we always made fair prices, and I mean fair as opposed to good pricing when we purchased. I had my own integrity rule that I would never visit homes to purchase. They had to make the decision that it was definitely for sale by bringing it into me. And anybody who was selling it because of the decease of their partner or was notably elderly, I insisted they either brought with them when they were selling it a close relative or a solicitor. So that wasn't where I made my money.
Well, interestingly, and this has been one of the reasons we've tended to call out the pumpers. Many of them, not all, but many of them, have their own bullion businesses where they make money buying and selling gold, silver, and other precious metals and coins. And of course, in the times where perhaps trade is not that buoyant, they need some form of headline to encourage people to buy and sell. Otherwise, they are sitting on stock that either is doing nothing or worse, maybe going down in value.
Otherwise, they don't make any money. Simple as that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult.
So they are perpetually talking it up. Gold is going to the moon. Currency is going to crash. Silver will be worth more than gold very shortly. And the ultimate pumpers surely was Bunker Hunt, who pumped silver up to the extent that he had a record of owning somewhere in the region of 3 times as much silver as had ever been mined.
So how does the normal collector or stacker therefore view this? Because we've seen obviously gold and silver peak of recent times in 2011. They've fallen back up to around 2015 and then gradually clawed their way back with quite good gains this year. In dollar terms, you're looking 18-19% gains. Now, there is a lot of speculation that 2020 is going to be the year when gold and silver will come into their own because equity markets are already peaking. They've reached multiple highs. Many view this as unsustainable. And therefore, 2020, we're going to see $50, $100 silver and $5,000 or $10,000 gold. Now, none of us have a crystal ball, but what's your view on this?
Bullshit. Will that do? This is pure nonsense, pure fantasy. And at the end of the day, even the governments wouldn't afford that happening. It's exactly the same as it is absolutely reasonable to assume the reason why interest rates at the moment in Britain and America and basically everywhere are low is because if interest rates went back to the interest rates they were in the late 70s, early 80s, you would find that governments would go bankrupt because the interest rate would overtake their ability to repay the interest on their loans.
But you're making the case for gold and silver there, because if interest rates are low, the opportunity cost of holding gold and silver has therefore reduced.
The opportunity cost is all lying with the producers of currency. All they need to do is turn on a printing press and they can kill gold. It won't happen. And I think talking to amongst the people who are speculating as a result of listening to the pumpers and the more outlandish channels, those people are not people who have sufficient holdings of gold for it to make a damn difference. If it went up a great deal, yes, they'll make a lot of money for them but not a lot of money in real terms, because 99% of the people who have the time to listen to pumpers and feel that they gain knowledge from these, in the main, charlatans who are pumping it, don't know enough to have enough gold and silver. In the main, there are, of course, exceptions.
So if I throw at you that then, you've already mentioned that in your time, you were purchasing sovereigns from people who had previously bought them for, say, 5, 10, 15 pounds. Now, as you readily admit, sovereigns now to buy around 260 pounds. That's a phenomenal gain, Greg. Who's to say that markup is not a gain?
No, it's not. I'm 73 years of age. What is the national average wage in Britain now?
It's debatable, but around £24,000 a year.
Right. I started work for £4.17 and sixpence a week before stoppages. People do not realise just how much currency has devalued. In the 1909 Pension Act, the annual pension for an old age pensioner, somebody over 70, was something like 4 and 9pence, 4 shillings and 9pence. That's 10, 20, 30, about 30p, isn't it? Now, if you actually look at it, the purchasing power of 4 shillings and 9pence in 1909 is almost near as, damn it, the same value in purchasing power as the old age pension of today. The fact that the old age pension has gone up, let us say £100, doesn't mean to say that it's that much more money. It's just more in nomenclature, but not in purchasing power, and it's purchasing power that matters. So when a sovereign was a fiver, that was a week's wages, or for some, a month's wages, which is exactly the same sort of price as the sovereign is when it's 100 or 200 or 300 or 400 on the scale of time versus value. It's just the same. If you go and look at a graph of the value of gold, take it back to the beginning of the 1800s, and you look at that graph and the angle on that line, average, to get to where we are now, yes, there are spikes, and there are in both directions, spikes up and spikes down, either side of that straight line you draw. But if you then put that against the value of currency, you'll find that there really isn't very much difference.
That's working on the basis of a major currency, because obviously if you look at the Argentinian currencies and some of these third world countries, that's not the case, is it?
No, but gold would be, in those countries, a hedge against the lunatic levels of inflation, where you suddenly find you need a wheelbarrow of money to buy a loaf of bread.
Yes.
You'd need 10 wheelbarrows full of money to buy your sovereign.
So are you basically saying, based on your experience then, that really gold and silver are essentially a hedge against currency devaluation and inflation, and or an opportunity for traders to make money buying and selling, but it's not highly profitable unless you can talk the game up to encourage considerable quantities being bought?
I think it's self-evident.
And have you ever made a loss on gold, Greg, or silver?
Yeah, well, I had nearly £100,000 stolen.
Apart from that one.
I don't want to make another one. No, I haven't, because if the price was low, I just sat there and waited.
Okay. Greg, thank you very much. I think
my pleasure. And coming into the new year, we can but hope that gold goes to 10,000 and silver to 200 during the course of the year, but you can buy it right up to the moment you sell it for 4 and 9pence.
Greg, thank you so much.
Enjoy.
We hope you have found this video interesting and informative, and if so, please give it a thumbs up and share it on social media. Please ensure that you have subscribed to our channel and press the bell sign so that you are notified of any future videos. Also, kindly visit our website at illuminatisilver.com, and if you haven't already done so, Please subscribe either as a free or paying member for regular email updates and offers. Disclaimer. Illuminati silver owners come from a background of banking, international wealth management and economics. Having now retired from these worlds, we are not qualified to give investment advice. Therefore, this and other productions must not be deemed to be giving such advice and merely represent the personal views of its owners.